What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the overall market. I'm also going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have the notorious CPI data coming out, not to mention other factors like that. But just know that I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total. Not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. So our friends in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So as far as NIO is going, we got this nice pump yesterday up to this 5.3 area. Then we got this rejection right here. We're kind of dipping close to $5 and we ended up losing that. So I was expecting my video yesterday for a retest of that 5 area, very close to where our imbalance was. And if that failed, this would be looking for essentially 4.8. Now, if that fails, our next target is going to be down here where this imbalance is back down to about 4.5. And we weren't able to get a bounce from there, so it's not the best of signs. Now, NIO is dipping a bit, but whether or not we get some kind of bounce is going to depend on some factors. So we could draw out a potential falling wedge, but whether or not this ends up panning out or whether or not this ends up getting some kind of breakout is going to depend a lot on CPI. So I'll be talking more about that first before I break down more details about this chart. So just know that as far as NIO goes, we've gotten a sell rating from Goldman Sachs. Nothing has really changed since then. Besides that, the price-price ratio is kind of flat and kind of stuck down here. We also have other factors, out here, such as our seasonality, which tends to show green about 55% of the time on Wednesdays. And then when it comes to hourly seasonality, at 10 a.m., not to mention the second to last hour of the day, we do tend to be more volatile. Now, there wasn't really much news that came out, at least for NIO, but they did win an award at the CDN People Award of 2024. They also got awards for their design. So I think that's very, very awesome news, at least for them coming out. As you guys can see, they have very, very nice designs and a very, very great team. I think that this is great news for them as they're going to continue to see improvements. Being based in Munich, their design team is going to be continuing to improve the way in which their vehicles look, and their designs are going to be very key for those sales and such. So it's a good piece of news, at least moving forward. Besides that, just know that the heat map is very mixed right now. We saw some stocks like Nvda in the red. We also saw other stocks in the red when it comes to finance and sectors like that, but there were a couple of greens, such as like Tesla and Google, not to mention Meta. So a little bit mixed, but more red than green, if anything. And the majority of stocks were in the red. Now, for tomorrow, it's going to be Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. 1 hour before market open, we have our CPI data report coming out. We'll be watching to see what this looks like. We're expecting all the numbers to be the same as before. However, when you look at the data, there is a signal out there that does suggest that CPI could be decent, because the first thing is, despite the fact that there was a slight increase in the month of October, so when the data comes out for the month of November for tomorrow, we'll see if there's some kind of increase or not. So I'll be watching this very closely. There's a very, very good chance that all items without food and energy could be decent, but all items for CPI, it's been on a slight increase. That's no surprise, because we did see crude go up just a little bit in the month of October compared to what we saw in September. So that's as gas prices did increase a bit. Since November, they did start to go down in November and also in December. So hopefully that does help influence CPI to cool off. And that could give us a decent number for a potential bounce for tomorrow. Now, also know that for earnings, we have Macy's, Adobe, and Costco announcing earnings over the next couple of days. But GameStop, if anything, that had a very interesting report. Their sales have dropped about 20% from last year. And then besides that, we also happen to see the fact that their earnings were not too bad. Their earnings were decent despite that news that has actually come out. So we saw their third quarter adjusted EPS at about 6 cents a share, above expectations, and their net sales were about $860 million. The revenue is a little bit below expectations, but their overall EPS was above. And then when it comes to what's going on, at least for now, there has been some more projected growth that's decent, but their net sales did decrease. So very mixed earnings. But because of the fact that their EPS was a beat, I would still say that it's still mixed. I wouldn't necessarily say it was too bad, and the share price still remains at a very decent place. The fear and greed index is currently at neutral, getting very close to fear, so we'll have to see if it bounces or not. Momentum is still at greed as it's dipping a little bit. We also have the put to call option ratio. Extreme greed is making up the majority of sentiment. And then when it comes to volatility, Right now, excuse me, right now things are at neutral, so we'll have to see how the VIX improves or not from here. So just keep that in mind. Besides that, as far as NIO goes, we are still in this range. We're in this falling wedge like pattern, so this might dip a little bit more. Whether or not we get a breakout depends on CPI. If we get a decent CPI, this could attempt to get back up to $5. Now, if CPI is hot and it's not, we get a negative reaction, we're looking for essentially 4.6. It could go either way, but because of this falling wedge, I do favor that this might try to break out and CPI might cause a bounce. So that looks a little bit more probable to me. As far as SPY goes, we've been dumping very, very hard. We're down to the support at 602. If 602 fails us, we are at risk of coming down to 605.98. If it holds, we could attempt to rebound for 605 plus. We're on a bit of a downtrend right here, but we'll see if we try to bounce depending on CPI. If we get that bounce, we could return to the 606 to 607 area. And if we get a rug pull, we're looking for essentially 600 to 600 to 598. CPI will most likely be decent, so I'm hoping we do get that bounce, but we'll see just to be safe. For ES, we'll have to see if we get a bounce here as well. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 60.40. If that fails, the 60.20 could be coming. But if we hold support, we could attempt to rebound for 60.80. So we'll see how that ends up going. For NVIDIA, we're at support around 135. If we get a decent CPI, 138 is going to be coming. And if not, we're looking for essentially 132. For Bitcoin, we'll have to see if this could get back above 99,000. There's a chance it might try to rebound for at least 98,000. At least technically speaking, it looks a bit more bullish. Tesla's closing above its 20 EMA again. I think we're on a very, very nice uptrend. So in my opinion, I think this is looking a little bit more bullish. I'll be watching the all-time highest potential target, but if we get a nice push tomorrow, Tesla could be approaching all-time highs around 415. If we lose 400, we're looking for essentially 393. But for now, as long as CPI is decent, we could see Tesla continue this squeeze. There's no sign of it ending from here. Now, NQ has a head and shoulders like structure, but we haven't lost 21,356. If we lose that after a hot CPI, this could be dumping for 21,250. If this holds, we could try to rebound for 21,500. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. For the QQQ, we have a left shoulder, head, and a right shoulder right here. If we fail here, we're looking for a dip back down towards this like gap fill for 517. If we bounce, we're looking for a pushback up to 524. The technicals do look a bit more bearish for QQQ to fill this gap, but we'll see depending on CPI. So it could go either way. Apple's at persistence at 248. A decent CPI launches this up back up to about the 250 area. If we get the rug pull, we're looking for a move back down to 244. It could go either way, so give this the time it needs. For the IWM, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We haven't really broken structure right here, so this is going to likely continue to maintain this trend. If we're bearish, we want to see us lose essentially 234. If we try to break out, we're looking for essentially 240 plus. It could go either way, but we're kind of stuck right here, so give this the time it needs. For Coinbase, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We have to try to get back above 311. Otherwise, we're going to be at risk of coming down to about 296. So give this the time it needs. For Amazon, there's going to be a risk of us hitting 225, if not 222 for bearish. If we bounce, we're looking for a higher level like 228. We do look a little bit more bearish as we could be touching this EMA before it tries to bounce. So just keep that in mind. For Meta, we're just range bound right now. Now, there's a possible left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder. If we lose 612, we could be dumping lower to about 598. As long as we maintain this support, we could continue to uptrend. So it depends on CPI. We might test 612 in the morning, then we'll see if we bounce or not after CPI comes out. So we'll see about that. Microsoft might be testing 441. We'll see if we bounce off that or not as well. If it doesn't hold, we could be dipping back down to about 438. So we'll see how that goes. And then for Google, we're on a very, very strong rip right now. We're looking for 188 as our target and higher levels. This remains a lot more bullish, so it still looks pretty good going into CPI for tomorrow. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. The market could go either way depending on CPI, but the charts do make me think that there might be a bounce coming. So let's hope that NIO gets a bounce off this 4.8 area and tries to bounce with the markets. If not, we're going to be going back down to 4.5. Keep that in mind, guys. Thank you all so much for listening. Get ready for CPI for tomorrow and expect a very, very big move. I think that we're looking quite good, and peace out.